Thanks for downloading Season 6, Episode 6 of Baseball Pitching the Fix. I am your host, Joe Janish, and with me as always is baseball pitching motion expert Angel Borrelli, and we also have a very special guest today. It's Larry Owens, the head coach at Bellarmine University, and we're going to break away from our normal structure this time around because we have our special guest, Larry Owens, and we're going to be talking about some really interesting topics, some of which like dealing with the influx of home runs and strikeouts at both the major league level and down in the NCAA level, and a lot of other things that are coming about because of that. First, I want to hand it over to Angel, who has some good things to say about Larry and what we're going to be doing today. So, Angel, why don't you take over from here?
Hi, good morning, Joe, and good morning, Larry, and thanks for being here. So I think everyone knows that basically in this podcast, we're not a guest-based podcast. We have guests on when we feel like it's someone who's really going to bring value. And as you know, we've done, and if you haven't heard some of our prior shows with Larry Owens, you need to go back and listen to them. And if you hear this one today, I know it will inspire you to do so. But I call Larry frequently when I hear about statistics or things that are of interest to me, and I want someone to explain to me what it means. And his knowledge is so extensive and his background. And Joe, before we go to Larry, I know you know his background, or maybe Larry, I'm going to want you to tell the background. I know you were with the White Sox, and anyway, your background is so obvious with every answer that you give. And they're probably answers to questions that you don't think much of in the sense of it being very complicated. But I said something to Larry on the phone. It was after I heard myself say it that I said, you know what, Larry, we need to have you on the show to talk about all of this that's going on in baseball right now, because baseball is changing. And I said something to him, and it's very true. Everything that Larry says has no shelf life. In other words, he talks the real deal. He doesn't make things up. He's been in baseball for so long and on every side of it that his perspective is so clear. And he is probably one of the most knowledgeable people I know in baseball. And I've been in the industry now more than 25 years and talked to tons of coaches, and coaches are amazing. And Larry, I think you're amazing, and that's why you're here. So thank you for being willing to share all your information with us today. But would you give a little bit about your background? Because that's, I think, what informs you in such a great way.
Well, thanks for having me once again. It's always a pleasure to come, on the podcast with you guys. I enjoy listening, and I certainly learn a lot from both of you. So thanks for having me. I'm head baseball coach at Bellarmine University. It's a small private Catholic university in Louisville, Kentucky. I just finished my 6th year here. In the past, prior to coming here, I worked for the White Sox. I was a minor league pitching coach for 7 years, 4 years in low A ball, 3 years in rookie ball. I've scouted with the Boston Red Sox. I had a 4-state area here in the Louisville area. Living in the Louisville area, had a 4-state area as an amateur scout with them, coached some independent ball, coached NCAA Division I baseball for 9 years, junior college for 2, high school for 2, and played a little minor league baseball before that all started. So kind of back where I started, went to Bellarmine University out of high school, and now I'm back to hopefully finish my career here. So that's all I've done. I think I'm entering either my 29th or 30th year. I think I'm close in that regard as far as years go, but I've done it all my life, and with this background in pitching, but now head coach here at Bellarmine, and enjoying every minute of it.
Well, Larry, I'm always complimented that you follow my podcast, being an ex-pitching coach and now a head coach at a university. And I have always loved our conversation. So it's an honor to have you here, but it also has meant a lot to me to have you as a follower of my work. So I appreciate that. And I want to tell the listeners what the number was that made me call Larry. And even though he'll mention it briefly because we want to talk about what's going on in college, et cetera, I called him because last week I was listening to some statistics about Major League Baseball. and they were commenting that, and this was by the third week of May, there were 1,135 home runs hit. And I said, that sounds like a lot of home runs. And I said, I wonder what that means. And I wonder what that means to hitters, and like, what is going on? And it's what stimulated the call that I made to Larry that prompted the purpose of this show. So Larry, would you briefly talk about that and then wind it into what the NCAA statistics are saying?
Right. Well, you had called me in reference to, home runs are up, and, they've been up, or they've been trending up since what I think is around 2015. And it's all the analytical. Every baseball's data driven, analytically driven. Analytics are a big part of baseball now, and in every way, in every organization, and rightfully so. I think there's a place for the numbers. I also think that the numbers aren't doing us much good at the lower levels. I don't know that it's helping as much as it's hurting in some aspects. I'll talk about that in a minute. But yeah, home runs are up. Last year in 2018, I think that was the first year in Major League Baseball history, and it's well documented. People have talked about it. There were more strikeouts than hits, and that's a direct result of hitters don't care if they strike out. Analytics has shown that they feel more runs can be produced by hitting the ball to the ballpark and with extra base hits. And so now, hitters are trying to lift the ball and hit the ball to the ballpark. And, as a result, they're doing it. It's happening. And, from a pitching end, in the big leagues at least, in professional baseball, they're trying to negate it. Swings the swing's naturally slightly up anyway, but it's more, they're trying to elevate balls more. And so now pitchers are trying to combat it. And so what you're seeing, I think it's all going to shift back, but now pitchers are trying to elevate baseballs, and we've always elevated baseballs. That's nothing new. We've always pitched up. It's hard to hit high fastballs, but that seems to be the way that they're talking about pitchers combating it. And then I went back just out of curiosity because for different reasons, just looking at some NCAA numbers, and I looked at, college baseball at the highest level, and I went back and looked some years that I compared 2013 to 2019, and it's certainly trending, in a bad way in regards to walks is what I saw. For example, in 2019, there were 10,800 more walks than there were walks issued more than there were in 2013.
Wow.
10,800 more walks issued in 2019 and 2013. Now, the one thing that did change in 2015, they implemented the lower seam baseball in college baseball at the NCAA level, NCAA Division 1, 2, and 3. We use a lower seam baseball. It's pretty close to a minor league baseball. It's not exactly like the minor league ball, and the minor league ball is different than the big league ball. The big league ball is even lower, and the ball actually feels a little bigger in your hand. The big league ball does, but the seams are certainly different, and that definitely changed some things. But my angle is, or my opinion is, that it's what we're teaching. I think kids and coaches, young amateur coaches, college, high school, youth, they're seeing things that are being taught, not just at the big league level or in professional baseball, but with, instructors and teachers around the country. And it's, in my opinion, they're just chasing velocity, which you've talked about at length, and a lot of people have talked about at length. And I don't know. I don't know that the numbers illustrate that that's been successful, because runs scored are up like crazy as well. Runs scored from 2013 to 2019, there were 9,200 more runs scored this year than in 2013.
Wow.
9,200 more runs scored than in 2013. Now, the ball was different, but that's also been done in currently basically 1,000 fewer innings.
Wow.
Jeez.
So, and if you compare 2000, if you want to be a little more apples to apples, I couldn't find the NCAA numbers in 2015. There's a way to find them, and I couldn't find them in 2015, which is, I think, is when all this kind of started. But from in 2016 to 2019, if you want to compare that span of years, it's certainly trending. 5,900 more walks and 3,800 more runs in 2019 compared to 2016. And home runs are trending up too. In 2016, there were roughly 10,000 home runs. This year, there were 12,000 at the NCAA Division 1 level. So, to me, you go back to the runs. A solo home run doesn't hurt you. A 3-run home run does. So the two guys that you walked prior to giving up the home run, that's what hurt. To me, at the NCAA level, there's a direct correlation between the runs they're giving up and the people they're putting on base. You can't score if you don't get on base. Well, walks are up I mean, from 2016, they're up 5,900. So that's 5,900 more base runners. Well, of course your runs are going to go up. Well, are we walking guys because are we trying to negate the launch angle theory, or the people trying to hit the ball in the ballpark? Or at college, are we walking guys because we're trying to throw it as hard as we can and don't really care where it goes?
Larry, that is such a great point you're making, because that was the question I was going to ask. With my, mostly I know about pitching motion, and I'm thinking, what do walks mean? Does this mean that what does this mean in terms of pitchers? Does this mean that they're trying too hard to avoid a home run? Does this change the balance of who's in charge when the pitcher's facing the hitter? All the home runs are all the walks because hitters are laying off more pitches because they're not caring about anything but a home run? I mean, what is that real direct message to? And I love that you're saying that it looks like everyone was trending to try to throw harder, but that it doesn't look like it's maybe paid off. Really talk about this issue with more walks. What does that say about what's happening to pitchers versus in terms of their response to what hitters are doing?
Well, I think it's as simple as velocity will open up opportunity for you. If a kid's dream is to go play big league baseball or get signed by a professional organization, if he throws hard, if he throws fast, if he can throw it above 90, that's going to open eyes and that's going to give him opportunity. But radar guns don't get hitters out. People do. Pitchers do. And I mean, it's a hard thing. It can be a difficult thing to convince a kid to do. You never really want all of us when we teach pitching, when you teach pitching, anybody, I want you to command your best stuff. I want you to be able to throw it as hard as you can. I want you to be able to throw your breaking ball as sharp and as hard as you can, but I want you to command it. And if you can't command it, if you can't hit the glove more times than not, then you can throw 100, but if you can't throw it over the plate, you can't get anybody out. I mean, you're going to get out. You're going to outstuff people sometimes. Pitchers are going to do that, but I think I can't blame the kids, the pitchers, but I want to say, we're partly to blame. Are we, we as coaches, are we to blame for not emphasizing the importance of hitting the glove? As well as, I want you to get stronger. I want you to be better. I want you to throw it harder. Absolutely, I do. But, at what cost? What are we going to? Somebody going to get hurt, or and these Division I college coaches, they're paid to win games. So at the end of the day, I think and I've talked to some Division I pitching coaches and head coaches, and lately the trend has been, man, I don't care if he can throw it 100. If he can't throw it over the plate, I'm going to take the guy with little pitchability. So I think it's all going to kind of trend back a little bit. But I think youth coaches, amateur coaches, sure, we want pitchers to be stronger and to be able to throw it as hard as they physically can, I guess. But because stuff is good. But at the end of the day, I mean, I don't know. I don't know how much else is going on. I was talking to a coach the other day. Somebody sent him a video, a recruiting video of a kid throwing a ball into a net and was trying to sell his ability to, hey, look at this kid. Here's his spin rate. Here's his whatever, throwing it into a net.
Wow.
Because, it's not just about that. And I think that a lot of amateur coaches, college coaches, high school coaches, youth coaches, instructors have made it more about velocity as opposed to going back to you and I. We talked about it a while ago. A pitcher's job is to get outs. That's his job. That's what they get paid to do. That's what their job is when you give them the ball, is to get outs. And you're going to get outs through throwing strikes. And then there's deception, and then stuff comes into play, and yada, yada, yada. But it all starts. It's easy for me to think of, at least, and I may think of it differently, but like I use the MLB by count numbers. In Major League Baseball, when hitters are in 2 strike counts, they hit below 200. Below 200 in 2 strike counts. The outlier would be the 3-2 count, where they hit around 215, 217 every year. In non 2 strike counts, hitters in the big leagues hit above 300. So it is in your best interest to get to 2 strikes as quickly as you can. So, and they're the game change. Every situation is different. I'm not saying just go out there and just throw it over the plate, 2 strikes. Now I'm in a better. No, I mean, you have to pitch. You have to, there's a lot more to it than that. But when they go out there and just try and air it out, I don't know. Sorry, I got a lot pretty long-winded on it, but
Yeah, Larry, to your point, I think you've hit on something. We may be at the point where the tide is going to change, because there are quite a few ironies involved in all these statistics. You pointed out that statistics are, convincing offenses, the batter, to swing for the home run and for the extra base hit. Yet at the same time, the statistics are also trying to find pitchers who miss bats. So that's why we have all these strikeouts and all these home runs, at least at the major league level. You have all of these pitchers trying to strike guys out, and all of these batters just trying to hit home runs regardless of strikeouts. But there's a point where it's not going to make sense anymore. And when it comes to velocity, you talk about guys who can throw 100 miles an hour but can't put it over the plate. Well, there's also the guys who are throwing 100 miles an hour and putting it over the middle of the plate with no movement whatsoever. And I point to somebody like Noah Syndergaard, who's doing that this year all of a sudden, and they're just as easy to hit, because if you don't have any movement, no deception, no changeup, nothing, you're just firing it away at 100 miles an hour. Eventually these batters are going to catch up to it. So, and beyond that, these scouts are looking for radar gun, lighting up at 90, 95, 100. But at the end of the day, a lot of these guys who get signed throwing 100, 98, 97, by the time they're established major leaguers, a lot of them are down to like 92, 89, and and learning how to get outs. And the reason that they've gotten that far is because that's what they had to do. They had to learn to get outs. Whatever happened with their arm and lost their velocity, they're still, to your point, they stay because they're getting out. So I think at some point we're getting to a place where the scouts, the teams, the stats, I think it's hitting like a peak. And I think the new Moneyball thing could be exactly what you said. Where are the pitchers who are going to get the outs? And regardless of how fast they're throwing, regardless of the strikeouts, maybe we're going to go back to the days where we pitch to contact and the defense takes over. So we may be at a point now where everything is going to start shifting.
I have something that I think is the reason. So first of all, I don't think velocity is going to go out of style. And I do believe you're both right on. Something's going to shift. But here's why I think things have not worked out with the velocity, the way they're trying to get pitchers to throw hard. And I'm hoping that when the tide changes, it won't be to throw the baby out with the bathwater. Just like you said, Larry, you would love a guy that can throw hard and command. That's ideal. We don't get that. If the ideal from a coach's mouth is, I want him to throw with top velocity and control the plate, if that's the ideal, I don't think we throw away the ideal. This is a sports skill. This is a skill where we want them to be able to hide the ball, locate, throw hard. But I think what's happened is, and I feel strongly about this because of the clients that come to me, baseball is pretty much filled with people who work within the sport, not the guys on the field, but sideline coaches who do kind of what I do. And there's a lack of knowledge about how velocity is produced. And most of the methods used are relying on big body sorts of things, like throw yourself down the hill, throw yourself, spin around and throw as hard as you can against the wall, with absolutely no knowledge about precision of the movement or how the arm during that motion can come to the exact same place each time. The release point of a pitcher has to be the same. There's a perfect place where when he releases it with his information that he has about his fingers, his wrists, the way he releases a specific pitch, he can command where it goes. If he returns, if his body brings his arm to that place each time, that gives him the location. And if the shoulder is allowed to place itself correctly to deliver the hand. When you are focusing on methods that spin the guy, have him go down the hill, you're putting weight on the back hip, you're doing this, but it has no information. It's not blended with, this is how we want you to move. But the goal is that you come right to here. That's a whole different way of teaching a task. And I believe that people do not understand how velocity is actually developed. And therefore, the drills and the motions and the things they're coming up with are everything but about where the hand arrives. And I think that's the problem. That is what has not worked. And in fact, I watched some baseball last week and saw pitchers in the major league that I thought were stellar with their mechanics. And they look all over the place now. I think there's too much body, not enough precision about what actually creates higher velocity. And that's why what's being risked is where the hand is at and where the arm is at the moment that it's most important. And what I'm hoping is not so much, hey, let's forget about velocity. Let's go back and pitch to contact. Let's do this. No, would someone wake up and say, hey, maybe we need to understand velocity production a little better? And hopefully this show, because those are the kinds of things that I dwell on, starts to open up eyes. And these guys that are out there being totally creative about how they think a pitcher should move to throw harder, if they could hone in their information and be just as creative with things that actually make sense. And that's what I think is the reason why the search and the chase for velocity has backfired a little bit.
Well, I have a question for you, Larry, to Angel's point. If the end goal will be precision as opposed to flat out power and speed, if the end goal is precision, would it make sense that the coaching methods would be more geared toward precision? And in the end, ironically, we'd find out we have more power, because it sounds like what Angel's saying is that if there's more precision in the movement, the pitchers will wind up with more velocity.
No, I agree. I agree completely. Yeah, I think that's probably the issue at hand. What are we teaching? Are we losing sight of the fact that it is a precision skill that, Angel you guys talk about all the time? It's true. It's a precision skill. And if the further we get away from that, the more people we're going to put on base, the less we're going to command the ball. There's a fine line. I think it's all going to come back, and then it's frustrating and it's scary. I don't know, because I care about the game, and I love the game, and I want things to be good in the game, and I don't know that it's in the best place it's ever been. I mean, there's certainly the advances we've made, with analytics and in every way. I mean, it's great, but wow, I think we have to meet in the middle somewhere. And I think, I don't know, just looking at the numbers at the youth level, the amateur level, certainly indicate that. And they're even up in the big leagues a little bit. Walks are up in the big leagues. Walks, while everything that would lead you to believe that command is not as good as it was, it's shown in the numbers.
Angel,
yeah.
If a pitcher comes to you and says, I just spoke to a scout or a college coach, and he told me that if I want to go to the next level, I need more velocity. So what's your response to that? How do you absorb that and then try to help the pitcher out?
Well, that's a call I get 5 to 6 times a week. And it's really scary how that the number of calls, I've always gotten that kind of call, but the number of calls is increasing. And the kids saying, I need more spin rate. They're saying things that are completely different. And what's interesting is they're talking about it like it's this thing that's sitting on a shelf, and they want to know how much it costs and how to go buy it.
Right.
It's like velocity is this external thing. And what I have to do, my first thing that I do with any pitcher when he comes to me and I film him, is to see, number one, where is he not using the velocity he has in his body? I know, Larry, you've seen this, and Joe, you as well. Pitchers where you go, man, he's got a good arm. Why is he only throwing 78? Or, God, this kid's got a great arm. What's happening? Oh, he's standing up. He's not using his lower body. You can see what is not in the motion. Okay, so it's very easy to see, what is he not doing? And that's my first job. What is he not doing? Second job, what is he doing that he needs not to be doing? Okay, what are you going to put in? What do you take out? You're hoping to God that there's not too much that you have to remove, that it's more that you need to put in, so that you can remodel something in a way that makes sense. It's probably like buying a house that needs work. How much work it needs is probably the question. Not that it needs work, but how much work and what's the nature of that work? If there's a foundation problem, probably you're going to pass on the house. But if it's the roof, that might be something different. So when you're looking at a pitcher, and every pitcher that comes has something in each of those two departments, and a pitcher should not be going and doing anything that he thinks is external to him to throw harder until he's handled those two departments. And guess what? That's a much simpler job than saying, okay, let me think. How can I make you throw harder? So those are the two things that are required of every pitcher. And unfortunately, and we know this because for years, this year, Joe, I don't know if you've noticed, and Larry, you've been a listener a long time. We've been talking a lot about velocity,
Right?
Because it's the talk. Well, guess what? 2 years ago, it was injuries. Okay. Injuries, 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 repeat injuries, third and fourth injury, fifth Tommy John. Well, if we have a sport where within it, we know guys weren't doing it right to the point where everyone was getting injured, and we didn't solve that problem by saying, hey, let's look at what he's doing that injured him and let's change that thing that made him more vulnerable to injury. If we didn't handle that, then we still got a sport where now we've got people not looking at how a person is doing something. For some reason, people higher up in most sports think, and I'm not going to say most sports, I'll just say baseball. If we look at how a pitcher's doing it, we are going to be afraid that he's not going to be able to do it. Again, talking about it like it's external to the pitcher, like he doesn't have a gift that he wakes up with every day. No, he's just doing it because this is the way he does it. And if we change that, well, he's not going to do it. No, there's a gift there that you want to see, and you want to see that. And then you, as the practitioner, have to know how to be smart enough to work around that central gift, put the outside pieces together so that pitcher can still deliver. So the same reason why injuries were at such a high rate, and the same reason why now, we're talking about everybody's trying to throw hard and they don't look good. It's the same thing. We have to be concerned about how something's happening, but more so, you can't be afraid that you're going to ruin the thing that's good. Doing something better never ruins what you're doing. It actually makes it better. But there are very few people who believe that. Maybe it's because they look at things only through their own base of knowledge. And somewhere you've got to reach out and say, let's bring in people who know more, just like let's bring in people who can measure spin rate. And Larry, I agree with you. The statistics and data can be very, very useful, but you have to think that way about other parts too. The pitcher is a human who's moving. This is human motion in the terms of sports motion, and we want to move efficiently. We do it with our cars. We do it with our technology. Why not do it with the body? And that's where we need to end up. And what's happened is the methods that are being used now are causing instability of the pitcher's body. When I talk about when I look at a pitcher to see if I like him, I look at if he's falling all over the place in his follow through, which means he had no command over his body. And even if he located the pitch, that's going to eventually go away. Every sport that has speed to it requires command over something. For example, the car that goes fast on the racetrack, the driver's got to be able to command control of the car while he's going fast, or he ends up in the bleachers. Same thing with the horse races. Same thing with the runner running a 40. If he can't go on a straight line just before he finishes, he's going to put extra milliseconds onto his time. So everything is about stability. And what is happening with pitching is pitchers have become unstable in their body because nobody's taught them how to move quickly while being stable. Stability you cannot have stability be the thing that you're losing. You can't cost stability because you're trying to move fast. That cannot be the cost of your motion. So I think that's what's happening. And so, Joe, in answer to your question, those are the things I look for. And those are the things that I do with my pitchers to release the velocity that's in them. That's what has to happen first.
Yeah. Larry, how do you think coaches can change their mindset in that way, as far as like maybe learning to focus more on the technique and the stability and the movement, as opposed to being focused on the miles per hour? Do you think it's possible for at least college coaches to start to look that way?
Yeah, I think if you want to do it, you can do it. I mean, you look at, we wanted to increase velocity as an industry, in the industry, in the baseball industry, we wanted to increase velocity. We've done it because it was important and it was a focus. If you want to improve command, you can do it. You just have to emphasize it. You have to work on it. Like, I can't keep not thinking about the numbers that I'm looking at right now, the pitching numbers, like NCAA Division I pitching numbers, and how many more walks and how many more runs. If that was just your team's if that was your team's pitching numbers, over the years, you're looking at how have we done over the years. Well, you're supposed to be getting better, not worse, you'd think. Or if we're really good, we want to maintain success. If these were my team's pitching numbers, I'd go, hold on, we got to change something. Something's going on. What are we doing? So, I think you got to want to, maybe you have to identify the problem. You have to want to change it, and then just make it a focus, make it a part of it. I mean, it doesn't mean that we're not going to work on that we're going to back off on keeping your body in as good a shape as we can possibly keep it, or we're going to try to do what we can to increase your velocity via, mechanical issues, or, just overall body strength, etc. We're not going to stop doing those things, but we're also going to focus on the precision part of it, command. I just think it's like anything. If you want to improve it, you can, and you likely will. I look at these numbers, these pitching numbers. I'm like, God, if that was my team's numbers, we got to change. We got to do something different. And, I look at our team's numbers all the time. What are we doing well? What are we not doing so well? And how can we improve it? And I just don't know that anybody's gone back and looked at these numbers that I did. I mean, I can't be the only person that looked them up, but wow, it's astonishing. And there's differences in the big leagues. There's difference in numbers based on what is important to them, and what the focus is.
So if each pitcher listens to this, and if each pitcher takes on the journey of calming himself down and making sure he locates his pitches, in other words, begins to think about harnessing his power and controlling it in a way where he can release it and command the plate at the same time. Would you say that's a beginning point?
Yeah, absolutely, and definitely not to be confused with, hey, I'm just gonna lob it so I can throw it where I want to. I mean, there's growing pains with anything. I had a pitching coordinator that was very adamant about, he didn't want you to sacrifice stuff for command. We're going to continue to work on your command, but I want you to give the hitter your best stuff. And I get it. And that's in pro ball, and that's your developing. I don't need you to win in the minor leagues. I need you to win in the big leagues or help us acquire big league talent. But, at lower levels, when you're getting paid to win games in college, you might have to, occasionally you may have to sacrifice a little stuff to command the ball. And I get it. But I mean, that's, you're never going to stop chasing, a pitcher's ability to improve his velocity. But I just don't want that to be confused. I am definitely not saying you need to back off and just locate it. That is the most important thing. It is a very important thing.
Larry,
Right.
But I also want you to give me some good stuff. I don't want you to just lob it in there.
Yeah. Larry, that's a big piece of what may be the challenge here, is that, and Angel, correct me if I'm wrong, if your mechanics and movements are efficient, you will have both velocity and command. There shouldn't be a sacrifice to get the ball where you want it to go. I mean, generally speaking, they're one and the same if you have your body moving correctly.
Yes. And I think pitchers and maybe coaches could be getting further away from believing that, because, yes, the more efficient you are, the more efficient. And when I mean efficient, I don't mean like slowing down and being perfect. I'm talking about that you're doing what you're supposed to do when you're supposed to do it. Most issues with pitchers' mechanics, when I say they're doing something that we don't want them to do, it's a timing issue, because you have to turn to be able to throw the ball. If your process of turning from sideways to facing the hitter isn't there, that's where you're going to be into trouble, because you're not going to be facing your target. The job of a pitcher is to get to facing his target in a position where he can put his body weight behind the ball. It's plain and simple. If every pitcher could do that, a 220-pound pitcher, get all that mass behind the ball and his hands in the exact place he knows that he can do everything he wants to do, that is going to be great. But because of all the methods now, I think people are like, okay, well, I have to move real fast and do this down the hill real fast. And then, no, I don't believe that if I move correctly, that's going to happen. No, it actually does happen. And that is where we need to start, I think, putting focus, is teaching the pitchers this. But the real truth is, and this is what my latest thought, and I have a pitcher in from out of town who's a great pitcher, but he was pulling off his pitch so badly. He's a right-handed pitcher, to his left side, rotating and pulling to the side with his head and everything. So his release point was high, but I could see the fire in this kid. The kid did not know how to control his own flames. And so he's out here from the East Coast, staying for a full month for off-season training. And my focus was to build the body to correct what I saw in the mechanics. So I've been focusing on everything that would teach him how to control his trunk muscles. So when he turned, he didn't overturn, and we're talking a way overturning, and pull to the side so much that it looked like he was trying to pitch outside. And I'm talking way outside. So by building a better body, so I think somewhere we've got to start taking the pitchers and we've got to start building them off the mound. So when they get on the mound, they can get there. They can create a stride that's correct, rotate quickly, and deliver the arm. If you rotate quickly, if you just stand up with your arms at your side, not at your side, put them straight out in a T position, and you just start rotating from your waistline, just like you're doing a little waist exercise. If you stand up and do that, and put your arms at your side and just start rotating back and forth and keep increasing your speed, you will see that your arms stay at the exact same place. And each time you rotate, your arms go to the exact same place. Why? Because the arm is connected to the body. It's like an airplane. Stay steady. The wings are at the side. If you tilt, you're going to have one wing higher than another. If you tilt while you're rotating, you will have the hand in a different place. If you teach the stability and the training and the strength of the body to move in control, then you will optimize and maximize where that hand comes. Plus, you can go as fast as you want, because guess what? Your body's designed to move faster when it's moving correctly in rotation than it is when you're one wing's higher than the other. So this is what I'm saying about, yes, Joe, efficiency, not meaning slowing down, but mean looking at how can I do what I'm supposed to do better, and therefore increase my velocity that way. And that should be the first job, because it's never going to work. And just like you said, Larry, it hasn't been working what everyone's trying to do with velocity. Here's what's worked. What's worked is that pitchers have become more intense. You know, all the training I see out there that's crazy, the one thing that they are teaching is intensity. Don't be afraid to be intense. But the intense has to be harnessed. The intensity, the power you produce has to be harnessed. So yes, learning how to do it correctly is the best way to do it quickly. And if you don't, your speed is only going to last for a certain amount of time.
Angel, I think you hit on something earlier. What I think is there's an information gap between your knowledge and people like you and the coaching knowledge. And I want to pose a question to Larry. Larry, would you agree that many baseball coaches and pitching coaches believe that velocity comes primarily from arm speed?
Correct. I think so.
So there's been like probably an over focus on developing arm speed above maybe the rest of what happens with the body that produces velocity. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I'd agree with that. Absolutely.
So Angel, now I pose the question to you. Now we know arm speed does play a part in velocity, but do you think that maybe that's part of the gap that we have here, is that there's just so much focus on arm speed that everything else goes out the window?
Well, actually, the truth is, arm speed is the ultimate, the final thing that will give you the velocity of the ball. But the arm cannot derive the speed on its own.
Right.
So the motion and the forces that are transmitted to the shoulder is how the shoulder goes fast. So arm speed is the goal, but how do you get it? Not by throwing and working with the arm to move faster. You have to work with the fuel system, the piping that brings the gas to the pedal. So when you push the pedal, the car goes faster. If you're pushing a pedal and you're trying and there's no gas going into that system, you're not going to go anywhere. So the deal is the arm, the shoulder is the receiving. It's the wide receiver of the quarterback. And the quarterback is in the way the body turns and in the way that the forces are transmitted from the foot. If you're in the air, if you could suspend yourself in the air and try to do a fast rotation or a stride, it's not going to happen. The feet have to be on the ground. The ground sends up the energy to turn and deliver all that fuel to the shoulder. So it is arm speed, but arm speed isn't controlled and created by the arm. It's very slow. If you just stand there, in fact, you guys who have kids and you've watched them learn to throw a baseball, or if you watch little girls throwing a baseball or kids that don't know how to throw, they face their target, picture a little 5-year-old, picks up a ball, and just from face on, just throws his arm. That's as fast as that arm can go. But when he starts to figure out, hey, if I put the arm behind me, then I can throw harder. And then when he figures out as a righty, I'm going to step out with my left foot and I'm going to be sideways first. Then I'm going to throw, the ball goes further. So the pieces coming together feed the arm. So yes, Joe, you're right. They all believe it's arm speed, and it is true. And you're also right. There's an information gap. Great. We all agree it's arm speed. The question should be, how does the arm get the speed? Now, some of these methods I've seen where they go, okay, we want you to turn 3 times and throw as fast as you can. Well, are they on the right track? Well, kind of, but so off the track that doesn't quite work either. You've got to know how to systematically transfer energy. And this isn't anything I'm making up. You can look it up, transfer of energy into the throwing motion, and those parts have to work right. So that's the information gap that's out there. And people need to start trying. I think that's going to be where there's a shift, is if there can be more people trying to focus on that. But you know what? It's so logical that people really do want something that feels like a shot in the arm. They don't want to work for it.
Yeah, the reason that this came up in my head is because I can remember, as even in college, talking to a scout at that time. He said, you need your pitchers to develop more arm speed. And the drill that he recommended was the 1 knee drill. Get down on 1 knee and just move your arm as fast as you can. And I really think that there are probably a lot of other pitching coaches. I mean, maybe it's changed since the last 20 years, but I do believe that there's still that idea that, we have to figure out how to get that arm moving faster on its own as the quarterback, as opposed to the way you've presented it, where the arm is actually the wide receiver. Everything else is kind of like pulling the arm as opposed to the arm driving that arm speed. Larry, do you still see the 1 knee drill?
Yeah, you see guys doing stuff like that. Yeah, but I've never really heard of it or seen it done to increase arm speed or to work on our
Good. So things have changed. That's good.
I've never seen it for arm speed.
Okay.
No, maybe to give a kid the feeling of what it's like to get out over his front leg. I don't know. I don't particularly use it, but
So, Larry, if you had in closing with all of this, there's going to be a lot of fathers listening to this, and there's a lot of kids going to showcases right now. And I get calls from parents on the way home from a showcase, and they're so upset because of the spin rate, because of the velocity, because of, the issues relating to that. And so they're wondering, what do we do? And now he's got a showcase in September. And should we send him to that? And is he ready? And how do we get him ready? And what do we do? And then the kid's saying, how many miles per hour do you think I can add between now? And then they're giving me a date. What would your message to these parents be as the coach of a university? And we don't want to pretend, I think I'm done pretending that velocity is not going to be important. How would you tell them to interpret what they're being told? And also, what do you think that they should be thinking or focusing on? Throw in anything that you can to give a message to our fathers and parents, and also to the kids, the younger pitchers, the fathers of younger pitchers in terms of their development, knowing what we're heading into.
Yeah, I think it's tough because that's what people look for. I mean, there's a great majority of, professional baseball teams, organizations, colleges and universities that are, that's the end all. How hard does he throw? We joke, all of a sudden, at our level, at the Division II level to the Division I level, it seems that 87, 88 mile an hour is when the mid-major is going to pick up the phone and call you. Now, all of a sudden, you threw 1 more mile an hour harder, or 2 more mile an hour harder. Now, all of a sudden, you can pitch. I think to me, it's laughable. I think it's silly. I look at when evaluating a young pitcher, I look at different things. I don't, velocity, of course, is an element of it, is a piece of it, but it's not the end all. And unfortunately, there aren't a lot of people that approach it that way. So, I don't know what type of advice I could give a parent or a kid coming off of a showcase or coming off of an outing where they're maybe a little displeased with their velocity. If you don't like it, do something about it, which could be, I would kind of take your approach. And is there something that mechanically we can fix or adjust that will help? But I think we're just in a tough spot right now that's an important piece of it, unfortunately. And, basically how hard you throw will kind of dictate at what level of interest you get initially. But at the end of the day, especially at the amateur level in high school and college, you are probably not going to get opportunity to pitch for your team unless you can throw the ball over the plate. And so that is the end game for me, your ability to get hitters out. And and you're going to be able to get the best hitters out in the strike zone. So, I mean, I would say don't give up on that aspect of it. Don't give up on that ability. Don't give up on that, something to strive for, to command the ball, to be able to get the best hitters out in the strike zone. Don't rely on, I pitched today and I faced the bottom of the order of the worst team in our league, and I punched out all 3 guys, and I didn't throw one pitch that would have been a called strike because they swung at everything I threw, and I'm feeling good about myself. Don't take it that way. Be able to hopefully differentiate, your ability, and always strive to give the hitter and give the catcher your best stuff within the strike zone. Command the ball as much as you can. Just don't get so hung up on velocity. However, it's part of it. It's a tough thing to kind of console or to help with that question or concern. You don't like your velocity, improve it, but don't forget about command.
I love that you said that. No, I love what you said at the beginning, which if you don't like what you just heard, work on it. And I think the reason why I'm saying that is because actually parents are starting to sound like, well, they're doing my kid doesn't have enough velocity. Can you do something? He's got a showcase in 4 weeks. They talk about it like it's this thing you buy off the shelf as well. And then they're also, parents have been showing way more disappointment in their kids than I've ever seen before. And I think it's because parents are feeling the pressure as well. but they're not understanding all the components of it. So it's a whole new thing for someone in the business I'm in to deal with the parents right now, because all of a sudden, and I think that's fueling kids' expectations as well. Because now they're trying to, and the parents think they understand and they hear all the statistics, and they're spending so much money, especially here in California. I don't want to tell you what it costs to be in baseball out here.
Yeah, and it's not just the thing they got to understand. It's not just the number.
Right.
The number doesn't make that. I mean, there's so many other things. What's he going to be like when he's, if he's 16 now? Well, I'm not going to have him when he's 16. What's he going to look like, and what's he going to be when he's 18 to 21? That's, for me here in school, that's what I want to know. Tell me what he's going to be like. He's 5'10" and 250 pounds right now, and he throws 86 miles an hour. Probably what he's going to be, if not worse, when he gets here, as opposed to he's 6'3", 155 pounds. He's 83 to 85, but there's projection there. I mean, they can't get hung up on just the number. You don't like something, improve it. But coaches and scouts, and they want to know what you're going to be. So it's not so much the numbers you throw up and what you do at that moment. It's how you did it. And we're trying to look into a crystal ball a little bit and look at what you're going to be.
Exactly. Great. So it gives you time to work on it.
Sure, absolutely.
Yeah, it gives you time to work on it. I always tell my pitchers, it's why you guys get all the zeros when you do get signed.
That's right.
Because they have to work, and it doesn't come without work. And I think that the list of things that a pitcher should be doing right now to be his best has to do with, the pitchers I know that are successful, they do it all. They don't skip any bases. They work out and they train and they eat right and they do the whole thing. So anyway, well, Larry, it's been so great having you.
Oh, it's great to be here. I learn something every time. Every time I listen, I learn something. I'm going to take something with me.
That's great.
Yeah, that was great. Thanks a lot, Larry. I think that the end thing to take away from here is pretty simple, and it's something that I'm sure, Larry, you talk about all the time as a baseball coach. The focus should be on the process rather than the end goal, because if you focus on the process, you don't have to worry about the end result. It'll just happen.
It'll take care of itself. Absolutely.
The title of one of the chapters in my graduate thesis was "Improve the Pitcher's Body, and the pitch will improve itself."
Yeah, so true. So true.
Exactly. Well, thanks again, guys.
Yeah, thanks. So, Angel, why don't you tell the listeners about your book on velocity and how they can get it over at gymscience.com? Are we still running that special promo?
Oh, yes. We're running the promo still on. So you can go to my website if you want to buy the elbow book, which talks about, so when you get all that velocity, your arm has to be strong so you don't get injured. So you can, in the code section or the coupon section, put in the word in all caps, elbow, and my book on the thing I was talking about, which is the rotation, which is where it's that middle, it's the development of the quarterback to get that energy to the shoulder. In the coupon section, you would put in the word in all caps, rotation. And I think that the sale price on rotation is $27. And I think the sale price on the elbow book is $47. They're both downloadable, so you can get them right away. Yeah, it's great information in there, and I think that's the way you can start. If there are stones you haven't turned, you need to start turning those stones right now and taking care of the basics before you want more. So, anyway, well, thanks for everything, guys.
Thank you, Angel. Thank you, Joe.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks so much for listening. I hope you learned something today. We'll be back in about 2 weeks. And until then, we wish you safe and effective performance on the pitching mound.